Welcome to the Restore It Ralph channel. This time I'm going to try and fix my terrible paint job on my '02 Dodge Stratus. I'm going to wet sand this car, buff the car, and then put it back together and get it back on the road. When I'm wet sanding clear coat on this car, what I'm trying to do is knock off the high spots, which means kind of like the orange peel effect, make it a lot flatter, and then trade those sanding scratches for finer and finer sanding scratches up to the point where the polisher then uses ultrafine scratches to bring it up to a shine. With this particular car, I could probably start with like 600 or 800 grit. I'm not going to, and the reason is I've only got 2 really good wet coats of clear on this car, and I don't know that I have enough material to get it as flat. I'm also not really looking for show paint on this thing. I just kind of want to knock the dirt and some of the ugly off of it, so I'm going to get started. The clear coat I use says 24 hours after air dry. It's ready to be sanded, polished, and put into service. So it's been over that amount of time. Make sure that you always look at your technical data sheet before you start getting into it too soon. For as many paint jobs as I've done, this is an embarrassing amount of orange peel. I'm going to attribute it to a couple things. First of all, high temperatures in the shop when I was shooting the clear. I think it didn't have enough time to really flow out. The paint gun I'm using, I just cannot get it adjusted right, and that's something I'm gonna have to look into, either replacing or rebuilding it or figuring something out with that. One big thing is the actual operator of the paint gun. I don't do this very often, so the last paint job I did I think was 3 years ago. So I am out of practice and I don't have good lighting, and I just do it anyways. So that's why I use base coat clear coat to get myself out of these jams. What I'm going to start out with is a 1200 grit. I can always go more aggressive if I need to on a soft sanding block, and I'm going to do this wet. I'm going to use just an old spray bottle with water in it, and I have a bucket of water sitting there as well. The water is just there to keep the paper from clogging up. You could do this dry, but it would take you forever and probably thousands of dollars worth of sandpaper. I'm going to focus on this front quarter of the door. I'm going to stay away from the edges because that's where it can be very thin in the clear coat, and try and get this kind of flat, and maybe just do a test panel with the buff and see how it goes. There's a real fine body line above this rub strip. I'm going to stay off of that as well. Right there, it's kind of smooth. Over here, you can actually hear it rubbing through that orange peel. All right, thank you. Lunchtime. Yes, this paint job is rough, but it's not unsavable. My goal for this car would be almost like a factory orange peel. It doesn't have to be super flat, and then that way, you know, in some areas I wouldn't have to get it perfect if I could replicate just some level of decency and shine to it. What I'm gonna do is switch to 1500 grit and then 2000 grit, and then run the buffer over it quick and see if that's an acceptable shine after doing all that. I don't want to take it totally flat with the 1200 or even 1000, because then I got to go over it with finer sandpaper, and that's taking material off every time. So I'm going to see how lightly I can go over this thing and get an acceptable finish. Because this clear coat is relatively fresh, it sands pretty easily, which is kind of nice, but it also makes it more, I don't know, susceptible to damage. Also, the sooner after you paint it that you wet sand and buff it, the more likely it is for it to die back, or basically lose its gloss as it's finished curing. So if you were doing this for somebody else and you were shipping the car, that's a concern. Since this is my car, I will see it in a month when it's dull. I don't really have to worry about that. I don't mind running the buffer back over it. I may get away with just sanding this with 1500 and eliminating a step. So if I just go 1500, then 2000, then the buffer, that might make this go a little bit faster. In the past, I've gone straight from 1500 to the buffer. That just wastes a bunch of compound and time with the buffer. The buffer is an arm wearer outer. One of the big challenges, I think, is going to be getting this level of ripple even throughout the car. When you go for flat paint, it's easier because, well, everything is flat and you just go until it's flat. If I'm trying to replicate an even amount of orange peel throughout this door, let alone the whole car, that might be a challenge. Switching to 2000. Next, for this test panel, I'm going to use my buffer, and this is a relatively new buffer to me. It is cordless. That makes it a little bit more handy. It's good enough for what I do. I start out with a wool pad and a compound. Compound that I use is this 3M stuff. It is not cheap, but it always seems to work for me, so I keep using it. When using the buffer, keep some things in mind. First of all, the rotation direction is this way, so you want that to be going off of the panel. If it's going on the panel, you'll burn right through. So if I'm going along this edge, I'm going to be going like this. If I was going like this angle, that would be going onto the panel, and that will rub the paint right off of there. Definitely keep the heat down and let the compound do the work. Ideally, don't buff in the direct sunlight. Obviously, my tree is letting me down. Next step that I use when I'm buffing is a foam pad and a machine polish. And this seems to work pretty good for me. This stuff you don't really need a whole lot. Okay, this is the paint job that we started with. I keep rolling down here, follow where right in here is where it kind of blends from sanded and not sanded. And right there is sanded and buffed. So this paint job is not going to be perfect by any stretch. There's going to be dirt and orange peel in it. So I'm going to call that good, because I would rather have more material on this car than have it super flat and perfect. This car is likely going to sit out ungaraged, out in parking lots and whatever. So I'm going to call that good. Now, around these edges, I will try and make that a little bit better. But for the most part, I can live with that kind of reflection. Compounding buffing, sometimes you actually accidentally burn compound onto the door, kind of gets stuck on there. It is real tempting to just run the buffer on it and try and polish it off, and you will likely burn through the paint. So just get some quick detailer, spray detailer, something like that, and it wipes that burnt stuff right off without any damage to the paint. Now all I gotta do is the whole car. I really need to get better at painting. So if I am buffing off an edge, I don't want to burn into the edge next to it. A lot of times I'll take the latch and trip it and then gently set it in, so that way I'm not hitting the buffer on this panel when buffing this one. So I've got a huge chunk of dirt right here. The more I sand it, the bigger the hole gets. So I got to make a decision whether I want to flatten that out or just let it be. I think I'm going to let it be. I had to do the whole door top just to see what it would look like, and I'm pretty happy with that reflection. It is very far from perfect. Like right down in here, you can still see the orange peel and whatnot, and I'm okay with that. That's going to be a high traffic area by the door handle. I just want more material on it. This is not a show car. This is just a repaint. But when I look at the difference between this door and this fender, it is a crazy difference. So that's motivation to sand the whole car again. Whew. If I had to live with the finish that comes out of my hands through my gun, I would probably never paint a car again. But wet sanding and buffing fixes me. So I'm taking my time, making frequent lemonade breaks. About an hour and a half in, I think it's looking pretty decent. Shined up pretty good. I'm not taking much off. If you look closely, you can see little pecks and pock marks and low spots in it, but for the most part, it's turned out pretty good. As far as the reflection goes, that's pretty. That's good enough for a daily driver car, especially when you look at this side, how hazy and lumpy it is. Let me come back and look at this side. Much better. I can live with that. Getting ready to take a mini road trip to my parents' house. So 2.5 hours in my 42 Ford pickup. Full tank of fuel. I've retrieved my son from my dad at the farm, so time to drive another 2.5 hours home. Back from our road trip, the 42 Ford is a rock solid rig. It usually is. This thing made the trip no problem. Cruised highway speeds, no issues. This thing is sweet. I'm nearing completion on the buffing project. The last part of the car that I wet sanded here is the hood, and it's got a lot of dirt and some bugs in it, and so I did not take it down flat, partially because there's not a bunch of clear on it, and partially because if I make it flat and then there's pock marks from the dirt in it, then they're going to show up really easily. So I'm going to try and leave this hood kind of orange peely. Hopefully it'll be shiny, but kind of ripply, so that way it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. This hood may end up getting scuffed with 800 and 2 more coats of clear put on it so I can actually fix it. That's something I can do pretty much at any time. I could pop the hood off and it wouldn't be a big deal. We'll see how ambitious I get with that though. I am going to call that completed for the moment. I am done buffing. The hood may have some swirls in it. I have to maybe revisit that. Can't see them right now, but I think they're there. And then this thing might die back a little bit after the clear totally cures. So I'll probably have to hit it again with some polish, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy with it. I'll probably find some spots on the bumpers that need to be polished out. I got some small 3-inch buffing pads coming that'll go on my drill so I can hit some spots that couldn't quite get to on this car, but so far so good. Time to do a big old detail on it, get all the compound and clear coat out of the grooves and little nooks and crannies of this car, and then start putting it back together. After the marathon week of sanding, prepping this car, then painting the car, and then sanding the whole car again, and then buffing the car, I'm going to say that as an old man, my back is sore. So I'm kind of looking forward to some of these lower stress projects, like putting the mirrors back on and stuff like that. This car sat for quite a while, so like the bottom of the mirrors, they need some cleaning. It's got some moss or mildew or whatever that is on there, so I'm gonna have to clean these up. I'm gonna find that probably with just about everything as it goes back on the car, that I want to make it nicer to match the new paint. This upper center taillight assembly is pretty weak. It's cracked in a couple places. I'm not going to clean it before I put it on. I'm actually going to bolt it in place and then clean it up as best as possible, just so I don't stress it out too much. I'll probably be looking for a replacement one of these at some point. Got the taillights and backup lights all back in. Pretty straightforward. All I had to do is just kind of wipe them down, clean them up a little bit, and bolt them in place. In a previous video, I actually polished the original headlights. The original headlights are the ones up here. This car actually came with a pair of brand new ones. And you know what? Who am I saving them for? Let's put them in. When I do stuff like this on fresh paint, putting cars back together, in some areas I'll just put some masking tape down just lightly, just to keep me from scratching stuff. New headlights installed, grill put back in. Last thing we need to do is put the badge in it, but I gotta peel all the old double-sided tape off of it. So we're gonna drive it around and make sure it all works. Aside from the badge, this thing is done. Now, the non-fun part of this paint job is gonna be just cleaning all my buffing residue and wet sanding residue off of it. But I will say, this thing turned out pretty decent. Finishing touch is installed. Gotta call it done. Now that this thing is pretty much polished and ready to go, one of the more annoying parts is trying to get some of the compound off of the rubber seals and trim. I know that I should have probably masked this or left it masked, but I didn't. And so I'm paying the price for that. I'm gonna try a new method that I just saw on the internet of using a pencil eraser on this and see if it actually works. I wouldn't call it a mega win on this particular spot. Let's try somewhere else. It's kind of doing it. Not a win, I would say. My old standby is spray detailer and a microfiber and just rub on it, so we'll see if that helps us. See when that dries out, but that worked pretty good. So this upper rail here is like a stainless piece and it's rubber coated, and that is starting to deteriorate and come apart. So I don't know how great I'm gonna be able to get that. Same way down here, and it's peeling pretty bad. What I might end up doing is taking a razor blade and cutting it down at this bottom edge, and then maybe repainting or Plastidip or something like that. I'm not sure yet. Since I got the air conditioning working on this car, I started using the blower motor, and at speeds 3 and above, it would vibrate real bad. Well, I think that would put it out of balance. Another thing I need to add is the RT emblems on the door. I'll probably do something on the trunk as well. I've got a cheap set of chrome ones coming for like 10 bucks or whatever, and I'm not sure what the quality of those is going to be. I don't really want to spend like 40 bucks a piece on them for this particular car, but maybe I just should. We'll see. Other than that, I'd say this thing is done. Had to pull the tape off of this thing. Basically, this thing is a daily. The last thing I need is another car with pretty paint that I fuss over instead of drive. So we're breaking it in the right way, I guess. Well, I think that's all I have the energy for right now. This thing still has some spots that probably need some compound cleaned out of it. It definitely has some stuff on the rubber seals. I'm going to have to maybe look into some other methods for that. But if nothing else, I'll do those, I don't know, in small bursts when I feel like it. Just got to clean up the tires, clean the glass. This thing's ready to be put back into service. In less than 2 weeks, I went from a car that was running and driving with crappy paint to a car that's running and driving with pretty decent paint on it, even with leaving for 2.5 days in between. My processes are not perfect, but hopefully it inspires you to just go out and try stuff. This car, with the paint job that I put on it, was pretty rough, and I was able to salvage it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.